Hey mushroom nerds, it's Anna McHugh. I'm spending time with a dear friend of mine, Karl Knudson, who is one of the folks who's really involved in the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill mushroom area. You can tell that what I'm pointing at right now is not in fact Karl, but a marvelous, nearly 20-pound specimen of the hen of the woods mushroom. Grifola frondosa is the scientific name. But this is one of Karl's oak trees and a find of Karl, so I want to have him show you some of the wonderful things about this great edible mushroom that is sort of the, I would say, the climax of our fall mushroom season on the eastern seaboard of the U.S. So here's Karl's boot. We're going to get a shot of Karl's face, and he's going to give us a quick tour of this marvelous edible mushroom. So Karl, you want to introduce us to your wonderful find?
Sure. Pardon the noise, but as you can tell, there's a road that goes by here. And the reason that we're here is because in this time of year when I'm looking for hens, the rule is you find the trees and the trees will find the hens for you. So a lot of times I'll spend time driving around staring up at the sky looking for the biggest, tallest oak trees that I can find. And a good number of them, you know, it's a small percentage, but if you check enough trees, you'll find these beautiful mushrooms there. And sometimes, like in this case, there's really one specimen on this large oak tree that you can see behind me. This thing is at least 4 or 5 feet in diameter. But sometimes, if you get lucky, you can find a tree that may have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even as many as a dozen specimens or fruit bodies that are coming up. This one is really nice. It's at a really good stage of development. It has some of the fronds that have become well developed and spread out. This is like what you would consider to be kind of a classic mushroom size and shape. These cook up really well the same way that you would most other mushrooms that you would slice, but they're still really dense. If I left this one here for another week, it would get bigger, but I don't think it would improve in quality. And these are so dense, if I pull off a section of it, you can see what it looks like on the inside. And you can actually take and slice these things up into thick slices, lay them in a cast iron frying pan or other heavy pan, press them down and fry them up until they get crispy on the outside and nice and tenderly mushroomy on the inside. They're really quite spectacular. Otherwise, you can break it into little pieces and as I said, cook it as you would any other. Last night we had steaks with these mushrooms, which are also referred to as maitake, and with a wine sauce on top of the steaks, and it was absolutely killer. But this is one of the prettiest ones I have seen so far this year. I've probably harvested a dozen. I have a list of probably about 20 or 25 trees that I visit when the time comes. And one of the things I do is I pay attention on the mushroom group, so that sort of tells me when it's time to go check my trees is when they start showing up in other people's feeds. But this is a wonderful thing. It's a great mushroom, fun to find. And the joke about these is they are very well camouflaged. They can hide, but they can't run. And the beauty is they'll also come back every year when the conditions are right. So once you find the trees and you mark them and you go back and visit them, most of the time they'll come back.
Excellent. So I have a question for you, Karl. How would you describe the taste of hen of the woods?
If the word umami means something to you, you'll kind of understand. It's an earthy, meaty, has a very good texture. It has kind of a classic mushroom aroma, but it also takes well to having other flavors added in, a hint of garlic, some wine, either a red wine or sherry they respond really well to. And you can make a wonderful cream sauce with them. And also, I plan on canning a bunch of them. They do pressure can well, and then that way I can have mushrooms all through the year to throw on pizzas or in sauces or whatever you would do with a canned mushroom. I don't particularly like this one dehydrated. I think that they're much better mushrooms for that purpose, particularly some of the porcini boletes and things are my favorite for dehydrating. The other good thing about these is sometimes the big oaks that you're looking for this mushroom, you may not find the hens, but you'll also find lion's mane on them. So because they kind of like the same oak species, and ones that are kind of getting older maybe have a little bit of a disease issue, makes it easier for the mushrooms to flourish on them.
Excellent. So do you have any other remarks, tips, or advice for how to get started with scouting for these mushrooms? You gave us some really good tips about looking for mature oak trees. Is there anything in weather or other conditions, tips, tricks, anything like that you'd like to share? Besides, of course, our direct and immediate coordinates, because I have sworn an oath of secrecy, and if we see you in this area, we have a variety of ring cameras set up. So, but, you know, generically, Karl, is there anything that you would share about finding these mushrooms or appreciating them to their fullest extent?
Well, they're really dependent on where you find the trees. And you can find these trees either in an urban environment, particularly in older parts of cities or small towns or whatever. You can find them in the middle of the woods, but you can check 1,000 trees, but if they're not at least 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 feet around, you're probably not going to find them. The other thing is this mushroom is pretty weather dependent too. Sometimes we have a problem where they get started, and then if it goes dry for a long period of time, they harden up on the outside, and even if we get rain after that, they won't flourish as well. And here in Wake County, we had about a 2-week period with no rain at all at a formative place, and I've checked, about half of my trees got started, but then got stunted really bad because of lack of moisture. So
yeah,
when you get the temperature starting to drop, you get those cool days at the beginning of fall, and if you get adequate rain, that's the time to be out there looking. And like I said, you can do a lot of your looking just driving around in a car with looking up at the sky. Try not to run into anybody, because I've almost done that before. But that's how I found a lot of my trees, is just cruising around looking for them, and then stop and get out and go check. And most of the time there won't be something there, but if you don't go look, you won't find it.
That's a great point. And to that point, when I first lived in Raleigh, I worked downtown and I didn't have a car. And so unlike a lot of mushrooms, as Karl mentioned, places where you have really mature oak trees can be in, you know, big downtown areas. And so I take my lunch break and just go walk around downtown and check the bases of trees. And so it's a little different, you know, more of an in-town experience, at least in that respect. But as Karl mentioned, because you have a lot of those more, you know, habitats that are exposed to traffic and people and whatever mulch people want to use, they get desiccated oftentimes much more than one that is sort of tucked away next to a busy road, but it's got a lot of shade and a lot of ground cover here. I think the other thing to note is, you know, Karl mentioned that ones that don't really get going, they sort of dry up, but you don't have a lot of luck sort of bringing them back to life at that point. You can trim them down and see if there's anything going on in the core, but if you see a hen of the woods mushroom that looks more like an anime character's hair, than a hen of the woods, you're probably just going to want to come back to that tree next year. But that's all I could share on the subject. This is just delightful, and I appreciate you taking the time with me, Karl, because you're one of our stalwart members of the mushroom community. I think of you as Raleigh's mushroom Ernest Hemingway, because among mushrooms, he's also an avid tuna fisherman and just generally someone whose ability to share information without getting into a lot of fuss is unique and much appreciated. Any final remarks from you or anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Well, just get out there and go look. You'll never, it's like I've told people, I've never caught a fish on my living room couch, and you'll never find a mushroom there either. So get on out there and get looking.
Well, that is good advice, Karl. So stop watching YouTube, get off your couch, go look for big oak trees. Don't try to spot the mushrooms under the trees while you're driving. Spot the trees, stop your car, and then go look for the mushrooms. I can tell you firsthand experience, your insurance rate doesn't need the other method. So I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Find a billion mushrooms, and we'll talk again soon. And thank you, Karl.
You're welcome. See you later.
Bye-bye.